Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for season 2, episode 3, titled Cutting Cards. And this was Kara's favorite episode of the season.
It is not my favorite episode, and it's not Fitz's favorite episode either.
Now, I'll just do an intro for those of you who are maybe thinking about watching it. You shouldn't. Reno and Sam are a pair of hardcore gamblers who don't play for fun. They challenge each other in a simple game of cards, and the end result couldn't be deadlier. That doesn't make any sense.
The end result couldn't be deadlier.
And the end result could be deadlier than they could ever have bargained for. It's got could instead of couldn't. That wasn't my fault. That was IMDb.
Oh no, they're like posing as a question, like the end result could be deadly.
Well, they're missing a yes, I do, but they're missing a question mark there. Anyway, hard to read and hard to watch. It's probably the worst episode in Tales from the Crypt history.
Unless the British one, until the British ones come along, then it's so bad to watch that Fitz is trying to get away.
Man, because I'm screaming in his face as I do when I host videos. But they had some really big named actors in there, and there's one actor that always makes a cameo. He must be your favorite.
I was gonna call him out, the mad scientist surgeon from the last episode that Arnold Schwarzenegger directed, was in this again, and now he's a bartender.
His name is Roy Brocksmith. He seems to appear in almost every episode.
I'm gonna make a Roy Brocksmith fan page.
Now this episode, more so than any, it really just focuses on two characters. There's not a lot of action outside of them. Maybe a bartender, maybe a waitress, but it's really focusing on two guys who, people like me who grew up watching television, obsessed with history and cinematography or whatever, you'll know these guys.
Well, I know one of them because he's from like my all-time favorite show that I was so obsessed with, the show that I made a shrine to when I was 6, and I still know the magic numbers.
She's talking about Lost, and in Lost, the actor known as Kevin Tiggy, well, Tiggy played who?
Locke's dad, and Locke was my favorite character.
Didn't he like steal his kidney or
Yes, he was his biological father who gets to know him while Locke is a grown man, finally gets to know his dad, and only long enough to steal his kidney. And
then at one point he throws him out of a window, doesn't he?
Yes, and that's how John Locke becomes in a wheelchair. What a evil man.
There's some parallels between that character. That guy must only get cast as an asshole, because in this episode they end up crippled and deformed as well. But we'll get into that in just a second. I want to talk about the other actor. There's Lance Henriksen. Now this guy, he's got that one-of-a-kind look. Now I knew him from back in the movie Aliens. He was one of the workers on the team, but I believe he always like played as Cyborg because he's like he was the original David from Prometheus. Prometheus, that's it. Anyway, long story short, you tune into this episode and you're like, I know both these guys, but they're much younger and they're still very villainous. But this time they're mad at each other. Please explain.
They're mad at each other. This whole thing is basically about their gambling addiction, and from my understanding, that they just want to settle the score once and for all, because they're both like, I don't remember if one owes the other money or they're just degenerate gamblers, but they want to settle the score. And that is literally what this whole episode is about. And honestly, who would play Russian roulette?
That's right. So a game of poker quickly they up the antes, and we find that playing for money wasn't enough, or one guy didn't have enough money, so they decided to start playing for digits. And we're talking like fingers, right?
Yeah.
Or was that before the gun? No, that was after the gun, wasn't it? Yeah, sorry, my bad. They play poker, they run out of money, so they go to play roulette. When that doesn't work, they come back for the fingers.
Yeah, it was honestly after that, I just kind of was covering my eyes a lot, because even though it was so like you know, it's not real, but I don't want to see people's fingers getting cut off. So after that I kind of, but either way, at some point they're playing Russian roulette, and I'm just like, this is the most, who in their right mind would ever play that game. That even watching it on TV gives me anxiety.
Yeah, and you know what? If you're not someone who's not comfortable with that kind of stuff, they don't go for it once. I think we went through like 4 rounds of each guy pulling the trigger, and you're like, oh, like no one wants that suspense, that fear that you're watching it makes you uncomfortable. And then we got to go into them slaughtering each other or cutting off their appendages. So it's funny. I was reading a review here because we're going through this rather quickly, but the review says it all. Pretty weak episode with crazy ideas. Really think this has to be one of the worst Tales from the Crypt episode. For one reason or another, it just didn't hold my interest.
Yeah, basically, it didn't.
If you were a gambler, would you like this episode?
I feel like if I was a gambler, maybe I could like relate to their craziness. But then again, I would think that it would just make me think about my gambling addiction and make me feel like a psycho. Because who's gonna gamble so hard that they're cutting off their body parts? Doesn't one of them end up as like a torso at the end?
Both of them do.
Oh, I think that was the ending, right? 2 torsos, like
and they were They were playing checkers with their nose. They had in the end, they're in a mental institution, the 2 of them stuck together. Now they hate each other. That's the whole thing, is that they want to outwit and outplay the other guy, and they just hate each other. Anyway, they're so psycho that they end up stuck together for life.
Nobody else would even hang out with this kind of nonsense. So they're so whack that they've only attracted one another. And then that's why they're stuck together, as 2 crazy torsos.
No legs, no arms, and that's after they cut off all their fingers, I'm guessing all their toes. Then they started moving up the actual limbs.
I hope they still have panunskas.
They kept their noses, so maybe in fact they don't actually hate each other, they love each other, and they're just two Lieutenant Dans that rub up on each other now.
Snuggles.
That's a new way of playing Russian roulette. Oh, is it gonna pop?
Okay. Anyways.
Worst episode of the entire show before the last season.
And I don't think there's much else we can say. Because you know what? All I can say is let's bet the next one is better. And I bet the next one will be better. Let's gamble on that.
Oh, you can. Well, I'm going to give this a 2 out of 10. The only thing I liked about it was the 2 actors, I recognized them, and the fact that I got to see a little bit of Las Vegas in the 1990s.
Wasn't it Reno?
No, that's one of the characters' names. Reno.
His name's Reno.
I only know that because it said it was Las Vegas.
Wow. Yeah. So my rating, I'm going to give it a 1.5 because I don't even know the other actor, and I only know the guy from Lost, and he's on that show too.
Yeah. If I can stay up, we're going to watch another one tonight, but by the looks of things,
here's to the next episode.
Yeah, sorry guys. If you sat through this and that, my God, I feel bad for you.
Good luck if you're going to watch that. Bye.